Live now to Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, talking after revelations today. $3 billion for the Special Forces to combat global threats. Let's go to the Prime Minister.
What I've seen on display today is a level of expertise, a level of capability that Australia should feel very proud of in terms of our serving men and women, but equally one that should also make them feel safe. It's their job to keep us safe. It's my job as Prime Minister. Our most important priority is to keep Australians safe. And these are the people who are doing that job, not just overseas, but also through their capabilities here to deal with domestic counter-terrorism. And we want to thank them very much for their service. And the best way to do that is making sure that they have the capability to continue to do that job for the next 20 years. I mean, the sorts of things that you see around me today, these are the sorts of things that are going to be upgraded as part of that $500 million commitment over the next 4 years. And over the next 20 years, we will see it go through another generation of heightened levels of technology, heightened levels of research and innovation to ensure that we have the best possible capability for them to do the most dangerous of jobs. So I want to thank them very much for their service, not only those who are serving here today, but all who've served in 2 Commando over the years. They have an impeccable record. The level of rotation of their services overseas in Afghanistan in particular has been simply extraordinary. And so we thank them for their service, and of course we thank their families also for the sacrifices that they've undertaken to enable their partners to be, and dads and mums to be able to serve. So thank you to them, and this is going to be a very important part about our commitment, the biggest single commitment to upgrading the capability of our defence forces since the Second World War. This forms part of our commitment to increasing defence spending to 2% of GDP, which is what we need to be doing to ensure that our defence forces are ready and fit and able and capable of being able to keep Australians safe in the 21st century. Happy to take some questions.
Minister, is the extra money a sign that you're anticipating more deployments, and where would you see those deployments taking place?
This is about ensuring that our special forces continue to be on the leading edge of capability, because the threats are always there and the challenges are always there, and we must always be prepared to face them, not just now, but for the next 20 years. And so whatever calls are made upon Australia, wherever we're asked to turn out, or indeed where we are taking the lead ourselves, then we need to make sure that our forces are in a position to do so, and that's what it does.
How can the extra spending be justified when some members of the Special Forces remain under investigation for war crimes?
To keep Australians safe. It's that simple. Those matters you refer to are matters for another investigation, because in this country, that's how we ensure there's transparency around these matters. The $3 billion investment is to keep Australians safe, and in particular to keep those who are doing that job on our behalf, putting themselves in harm's way, safe as well as they go about that task. This is one of the most important investments that I can make as a Prime Minister, to ensure that our special forces are equipped to do the job that we require of them to protect Australia and to keep Australians safe.
Prime Minister, have you made a decision on joining the UK and the US to police the Persian Gulf?
Not at this point. We are consulting with other countries that are either already indicated their preparedness to join such an operation, and those who are considering it, to ensure that we are fully informed of what the operations are and any role that Australia can play. As I said the other day, this is a very specific task that's about keeping shipping lanes open, about de-escalating tensions and ensuring that there is freedom of navigation. These issues are very important to Australia, and they're very important to all peace-loving people.
Prime Minister, do you have any concerns about Helios being taken over by a foreign company?
Well, they're questions that go to the Foreign Investment Review Board and ultimately to the Treasurer. And our foreign investment laws only allow foreign investments where we don't think it's contrary to the national interest. And so you can expect those conditions, those analyses to be done on any such investments to ensure that Australians' national interest is always first and foremost in any decisions that are taken.
Can I ask you, do you support the right of backbenchers like Andrew Hastie to make public comment, make warnings about China's strategic advances?
Well, I made a comment about that the other day. I'd simply say this, that the government is fully aware of the complexity that is involved in our region and the challenges that we face in the future. It is a highly complex environment, and we are fully aware and doing what is necessary to ensure we can manage those complex relationships going into the future. And we're also careful as a government to ensure that we don't seek to make them even more complex than they need to. And that's what Australians can always count on. We will be measured, we will be careful, and we will put Australia's national interests first. It's Australians' national interests that our government is focused on in how we manage our relationships, whether it be here specifically in the Indo-Pacific or more broadly around the world. We know who our allies are, we know who our partners are, our strategic partners in the region, and we're for an independent, sovereign Indo-Pacific. And our judgments and the measures that we're taking, the comments that we make, the way we engage with our partners are all designed to achieve that. It is in Australia's national interest to have an independent and sovereign Indo-Pacific where all the nations of this part of the world can engage with each other freely according to international norms and the rule of law to ensure each of those countries can pursue their own interests, and certainly so Australia can pursue ours.
Do you think that Andrew Hastie's comments likening the rise of China to the rise of Nazi Germany were inflammatory and did make those problems more complex?
Well, I made comments on that the other day, so I don't feel the need to add anything further to it.
Prime Minister, you mentioned that it's the biggest increase in spending since the Second...
Sorry, I missed that.
You mentioned it's the biggest increase in spending
Correct.
since the Second World War. Why is it the national interest to suddenly up our spending to the 2% GDP?
Because when we came to government, it had fallen to the lowest level since before the Second World War. And it was imperative that we brought our capability of our defence forces, whether it's our special forces here or our naval capability or Air Force capability. This day last week, I was up at the Land 400 project up in Queensland, and we are going through the process of upgrading the capability because, as a sovereign nation, we need to be in a position to pursue our national interests, to defend it where necessary, to join with our allies and partners to do so when called upon, because this is what keeps Australia free and this is what keeps Australia safe. And my government will always do what's necessary to keep Australia free and to keep Australia safe. And those who stand behind you right now are involved in that task each and every day, and they will always have our full support and backing to do that job. So we're pleased to make these investments. They're important investments to make. And now my government will keep making them. Thank you very much.
Pretty brief news conference from Scott Morrison there, of course, wanting to talk about this new funding, or at least new focus for SAS, the Special Forces branches of Australia, to be able to combat global risk there, but also, of course, commenting on, well, a growing debate about China, whether Australia perhaps should be a little bit more assertive, whether Australia as well needs to be more conscious of China's true intentions. This all really kicking off from a column from Andrew Hastie last week. Scott Morrison, not wanting to get too far into that. Interesting comments, though. He did say that Australia doesn't want to make the situation more complex. Perhaps a bit of code there for essentially saying, hey, let's not speak out too much about these things and talk in public about some of the concerns Andrew Hastie had, but at the same time, emphasising Australia wants those countries in the Indo-Pacific, in our region, to be free to make their own decisions. And that's certainly part of Australia's push back into the Pacific to try to combat any sort of China influence. Not that the PM was saying as much in those words, but that was the indication there from, as I said, a pretty brief news conference, only 10 minutes or so.